and welcome to my channel. I'm Z. Come wine with me. Today I'm going to whine about Married at First Sight Married at First Sight season 14 primarily episode 10. Might throw some things that happened from episode 9 in there as well, but let's get into it. Mark and Lindsey. Now last episode, Mark and Lindsey had a big blow up at the bowling alley. So Dr. Viviana and them, primarily Dr. Viviana, is going around talking to the couple to help them navigate through some of their difficulties and their issues. So she goes to talk to Lindsey and Mark, and Lindsey and Mark are interesting to me because in the beginning, like, they seemed like they were gonna do very well together, like they were a good couple, but they seem to have these big like blow ups. And Lindsey, I also want to call her drunky. Like, I like Lindsey, but I also recognize that she comes off as a mean ass drunk. She comes off as a belligerent, just evil, just mean spirited drunk. And she says something that hit below the belt anytime she gets an opportunity, seems like. And that's not right. And I have to say that in this couple, she comes off as kind of being I'm not saying she's getting a villain edit. I don't think she is. I am saying that I feel like in this couple she comes off as like the bad one in the couple, when really I think if Mark was paired with anyone else, it would be his fault would be more magnified. But in this couple, because she is such a big personality, it kind of overshadows his faults. So it's like in the beginning, I felt like they were evenly, matched before, we learned more about their personalities and more about their backgrounds. And I have to say, it's where Lindsey is a mean-spirited drunk and hits below the belt. I feel like a lot of what she says is the truth. And it makes it kind of difficult because it's like, on the one hand, I want to root for her because I love that she's a truth teller. But she goes step overboard when she decides to just say really like mean, nasty things. And honestly, when you talk about anyone like that, but especially someone who's supposed to be very close to you, who you're supposed to be living your everyday life with, like a significant other, a spouse. I mean, she says some things that just you can't really walk back. Like, she was talking about this man's testicles are too small. She's talking about like he's not really good in bed. It's not satisfying her. She just takes it a little too far. There's a refreshing element to it, but as an adult, we have to learn how to temper our words, sometimes temper our emotions, and I think that one can still be honest, because I think honesty is important, but be honest without being cruel. And what the line is, I don't know what the line is, because sometimes people feel like any form of honesty is mean, and I disagree with that. I think maybe the line is is there a way to preserve someone's dignity? And if you check yourself and look inward, are the words being said because the intention is to improve, or are they being said because it's just out of hurt, or just out of a sense of frustration, or even malice? And I think maybe that's what I think the line is. And I think with Lindsey, like, she was saying things out of frustration and not necessarily saying things with an intent to give the truth as a means to moving forward, as a means to to work on it. And so I think that's what the line is. And so she just, I'm glad that Dr. Viviana did check her on that, because she was just like, you're rude. and Lindsey did admit that, like, she was just frustrated with the state of things. And, as the episode wears on, it's just clear that this girl is just sexually frustrated, and with a good O, she's willing to put up with anything because, baby, let me tell you something. If I knew that I had just gotten married to a man who got bed bugs all up and through his house, I would not be moving in with them. I just wouldn't. We can be married from 2 different residences, but you ain't moving in with me. She's very frustrated, and she leaves it all on the table. And I can understand that too, right? Because we do see Lindsey putting in an effort in this relationship. She is 10 toes down for this guy. Like, his life is chaotic. I personally don't feel he should be in a process like this. He's a grown ass man, and I don't even know where to start. I mean, he was getting all these calls. Like, I still feel like I don't really know what's going on with Mark. Like, the fact that when they were on their honeymoon, he was getting his phone blown up by his landlord and getting kicked out, evicted from the premises of a woman he claimed he knew for 20 years or something like that. And then you have a situation where when you get home, you find out, his whole residence has to be, what do you call it? What do they call it? Fumigated? Is that the right word? Basically, it has to be bombed, because it has bed bugs. And so, he has to have that whole place treated. He's got family drama going on. He's practically homeless. He has some issues with his, I don't know. I honestly don't know. He just, like Lindsey says, his life just seems chaotic, and I don't understand how, honestly, I do understand. Lindsey said it's something to the effect that's just like, he probably wants a woman so he doesn't have to live with his mama. So he doesn't have to live with his mama. I mean, she also, Lindsey also talked about, like, he's only making $60,000, and she's like denigrating his job, and she did that last episode, but she seems to like walk that back in this episode 10. So yeah, like, what is clear with Lindsey is a lot of the things that she's expressed, even though I think she's telling the truth about how she feels, and she's telling the truth about Mark's life being chaotic. I also think, based on what she says herself, like, if she's physically satisfied, sexually satisfied, she would forgive all of Mark's, the ridiculousness that's going on in Mark's life. She's more than willing to put up with his chaos. If she's getting that D, and if she ain't getting the D and it ain't being put down right, then that's why all these other problems are being brought to the fore. So, frankly, Mark has a simple job. You have a very simple job, sir. Keep the woman happy, keep a roof over your head, okay? We're in a place where they could laugh and, talk again, because, it was really tense between them after the bowling breakdown, the bowling alley breakdown, because, baby, Lindsey's tongue is sharp, honey. But, she was reacting to her, like, perceived rejection by Mark. I'm not saying that everything she said was okay. I am not condoning with the things that she said. Even though she was in the bathroom, she was loud and you could hear what she was saying, you know, and so, and even the fact that she said it in the first place, like some things you just don't say to other people, right? Like some things you just don't say. And even when she was having the session with earlier in the episode with Dr. Viviana, when she was trying to kind of smooth over their issues because they were in a really tense place, even Dr. Viviana was like, "Girl, you're rude. You're nasty and you're rude." Like, because Lindsey's just, she's no holds barred. And Lindsey, when they had their little intimacy session, I thought theirs was cute. They had, Mark really seems like like he seems more conservative. Not even conservative. I'm not necessarily in his politics, but just in his demeanor. He seems kind of like more stick in the mud, whereas Lindsey is more fun and, you know, footloose and fancy free. So, you know, for their intimacy session, they had like this, you know, like box of like fun playtime bedroom toys, and there was like a ball gag. There were like ball gags and stuff like that, and so they were like asking questions with ball gags in their mouths, but Mark didn't have his in his mouth. He's like, I'm gonna choke. So he didn't actually put it in his mouth or whatever. But I just thought they had a couple of cute scenes. They also had a scene before he even came in where they were doing like a Nerf gun fight. I thought that was so cute. Okay, I'm gonna just go quickly through Elijah and Katina. They, Viviana comes to visit them. You know, I'm not a fan of Elijah. While Dr. Viviana is asking them to express what their issues are, and they basically recount to her what occurred in episode 9. She asked Katina to discuss why she feels the way she feels, and she talks about how, you know, she just feels like she can't do anything right and get anything right. She, you know, hates that. She hates that she's disappointing him and disappointing as a wife, and that, you know, she feels like she's the figure in the relationship that is failing. And she also recounts how, you know, she was in a previous relationship where, you know, there was verbal abuse and stuff like that. And, you know, she just talks about all this stuff, and then Dr. Viviana, you know, she talks to Elijah and tries to, you know, get him to see that he is not, his whole harping on wanting a wife to cook and clean. It's just that it's harping on something that, in the grand scheme of things, isn't really that significant in the face of, you know, a woman having pretty much everything else he claims he wants in a relationship. And then, you know, my issue with the whole scene with Dr. Viviana, she did try to take him to task, but I feel like she didn't. I feel like she didn't. She feels like they reached a resolution that is satisfactory, where I feel like she missed something. Like, she missed a big red flag. For example, basically, she gets out of Elijah Wan, or she interprets what Elijah Wan is saying as he needs Katina to be vulnerable. He needs to see vulnerability in Katina. You know, that's something that he needs to feel in order for him to feel like safety in the relationship. But what I feel like Dr. Viviana missed is that you should not encourage someone to be vulnerable to a person who has shown that if they're vulnerable, you will take advantage of that vulnerability. You will not honor that vulnerability. And that's what we get with Elijah Wan and Katina. How do I know? We've already discussed in the previous video on this. But I'm also going to add what we get from this particular episode is when Katina is crying, for example. Elijah Wan's just looking dead, like doesn't offer any support, just kind of looks annoyed that she's crying, frustrated, yada yada, right? And then as they continue to have their session with Dr. Viviana, all of a sudden it's him that's crying, and everything, like the whole session kind of centers him and his feelings and his, he gets to crying and he gets the comfort and everything. He, to me, lacks empathy, and that is not somebody who you encourage to others to be vulnerable with. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, with Katina, I feel like, you fast forward through this episode, and when they show a scene where Katina says, "Oh, I need to woo my husband," and she makes a date night for them, which is very thoughtful, and he's all happy and giddy, and he's like, "Yeah, that's what I need." She's like, "Oh, I need to woo him," and it's just. Oh, another thing I never even mentioned is, so in the beginning of this season, throughout the season, when Elijah Wan was talking about intimacy and that he wasn't ready to, sleep with her, he had relationships before that were, he wasn't withholding intimacy or anything like that. I was actually on his side with that. I was actually very much on his side. I was like, yeah, that's good. Like, I am all for not jumping into, a physical relationship just because, don't allow the experts to push you, blah, blah. But then as time goes on, you realize, oh no, he's not refraining from sleeping with her because he doesn't find her attractive. He's not refraining from sleeping with her because he wants to really allow their, emotional relationship to grow. He's refraining from sleeping with her because he wants to. It is a mode of purposely withholding. So the difference is the angle that is coming from it. It was a withholding mechanism. He was withholding sex from her because it wasn't because all these noble reasons I thought. It was him withholding because he felt like he wasn't getting what he wanted in the relationship. So, he was like, oh, well, I'm going to, prevent her from having something that would, even though I do want to do that, it's something, it's like a punishment. That's the instinct. It's like a punishment. And so I feel like when it seemed like his reasoning for holding back on intimacy, kind of switched over to being a punishment, that's when I'm like, see, this guy, I can't with him. I just can't with him. But that's how I feel about this. That's what I'm getting from him. Like he was doing things to. He just. So anyway, sorry, I'm skipping around. So Katina has this great date night and for him, and then you see them getting along, and I guess he's really feeling getting the validation and what he needed to see, her making special efforts for him. So that is a positive in the sense that for their relationship in terms of them having a chance of staying together because he's happy and she's done something to make him happy. Something else that concerns me is that while Katina and Elijah are having their movie night, what was it, the movie night, or I think it was their movie night, doesn't matter, right? The scenario is that he basically tells her, oh, I've been disappointed so much in my life, and she's like, oh, I know, and it's he basically puts this pressure on her to be his source of support, and yes, you're supposed to be a source of support for your significant other. While you are supposed to be a source of support for your significant other, it should not be a box. It should not be jail. It shouldn't be an albatross across your neck, right? Around your neck or whatever. Like, I feel like he is continually putting Katina in positions where he pigeonholes her in certain ways. And maybe because she's young, she's just not wise enough to see the getcha gotcha for what it is. But basically, by constantly bringing up, oh, I've been disappointed so much in my life, basically, he's like pre-guilting her so that anytime, any move she makes, she's got to have that in the back of her head. Oh, I don't want to disappoint Isaac, or whatever the fuck his name is. Oh, or Elijah Long, whatever. I don't want to disappoint Elijah Long. He's mentally setting her up, and she's just not wise enough to see it yet. And she needs to strap on some Jordans, some Nikes, Pumas, Reeboks, whatever, and Asics, Brooks, and run her ass up out of that relationship, because I don't think he's it. But you always have to say, if she like it, I love it. She might like it, I don't love it, but yeah, best of luck to her. So we get Noy and Steve. I don't really have much to say about them. They look like, initially they seem like that they're pretty solid couple. They seem to be the most solid couple in this season. But we get some little tips here and there. And I think the biggest issue that is showing up now is about finances and Steve's reluctance to make any effort to give Noy some semblance of security. I feel like I don't know if he's playing games or what, because okay, so you get I think it was Dr. Viviana that visited them as well. Was it Pastor Cal? I think it was Dr. Viviana. She goes to visit them. And they talk about the whole, security issue working, and Steve puts forth the idea of, how would, she feel if he was like a house husband or something like that. And I'm just like, boy, if you know she wants 3 children, and she has like a more traditional notion in mind, I don't understand why he at first says, oh, throughout this season we're getting the sense, oh, Steve is basically confident in his ability to make money. He has things that he wants to do on his own, I guess. Maybe he wants to start his own business or just freelance. Fine, right? But it keeps coming up over and over again that Noy, she wants to have 3 kids, not 2, not 1, not 4, 3 kids. Why not put up 3 kids? And and she says why. She says that she wants something that resembles something similar to how she grew up. She feels like 3 is a good number. She wants to kind of recreate her family dynamic that she grew up in. She also wants to feel like, her family would be well provided for, because she grew up at a refugee camp. She knows what it's like to live in poverty and be very poor. She doesn't want that for herself or her kids, future kids, right? I don't feel like that is unreasonable, right? I don't feel like it's unreasonable to say, I want a family, and I want to feel like we will be able to provide a family with a comfortable lifestyle, where I do not have to worry about money. I feel with Steve, he just doesn't make an effort to quell that, I feel, very reasonable concern. How could he quell it? He could simply say, oh, I have savings. Do you have savings, Steve? Do you have savings? I feel like it's not that hard unless you are making it that hard. And I feel like Steve is making it that hard. So here's what he does. They're meeting with Dr. Viviana. He brings up the possibility of him being a stay-at-home, and like, Steve, are you just trying to tell us you broke? Like, what's going on here? Like, I'm like, he's about to get on my nerves. Like, sir, you already don't have a job, okay? You ain't got no job. And now, rather than, making any, that now you're trying to be a stay-at-home dad because you ain't got no job. Like, I don't know what to do with him. I don't know what to do with him. Here's what I what I hope Noise. I hope Noise says yes. If you have at least $5 million in the bank, you can stay your ass home. But other than that, you take your ass out there and you make some money because you can't have babies. And even if you could have the babies, I've already told you the lifestyle I want to have. So I just feel like Steve is just making things unnecessarily complicated. And I feel like at this point he's just playing games and it's just very annoying. And no, I am not under any circumstances suggesting that someone cannot be a stay-at-home father. So that is not a problem. The problem here is Noy has already set out what type of family dynamic she prefers, right? So, like, you're basically trying to see if you're like testing, basically. And you don't like testing. Don't test me, because I fail on purpose. And I feel like he's testing her by saying, trying to see like if he can just push her or move her from her position just cause. And I feel like you do that if you have a sincerely held position. I don't feel like Steve has a sincerely held position on the matter. I feel like his only sincerely held position is just to see if he can knock her off her square, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So Jasmina and Michael. So Jasmina and Michael have kind of given me some moments of frustration. I think in the beginning of this season, I had my good eye on Michael because I suspected that he's a very kind guy, but that because he's had so many traumas in his life, that when Jasmina brought up, that they had a disagreement, she brought up that he was just kind of overly emotional and overly aggressive. I felt like I could see that being a thing for someone if they had not done the work on themselves, and where they've had like a lot of trauma, and where he has probably this fear of abandonment after having such a just sordid past with losing so many of his loved ones. And with Jasmina, I felt that she was very guarded, but I felt that was kind of understandable. But as the season progressed, I started getting really frustrated because it's like, oh, I see that it's actually, Jasmina is difficult. Oh, I hate saying difficult because that's so subjective, but we got to see in real time when Dr. Viviana was with them, when he was trying to have a conversation and say, well, how can I communicate better? And she's just getting super defensive. You take a tone, girl. Check your own tone. Like, what are we doing here? She just didn't want to answer the question straight out, and she made this whole show of getting up and walking out. Which, don't get me wrong, if you feel like you're about to lose your crap, yes, separate yourself, give yourself some breathing room, and calm yourself down, and then come back to the situation. But even though the situation we saw in front of us didn't require all that. All she had to do was answer the man's question. And rather than answering the man's question, she chose to be defensive. And to me, like, that really says that she doesn't like being questioned. She doesn't like the onus of, the question being on her. Because I thought that Michael was very respectful, and I understood what he was asking. Like, I felt there was more than one time throughout the season where he pretty much asked the same thing. did this nice little picnic for her in the dog park and had her little dog, gave her little dog some clothing and some gifts because her dog is very important to her, and he wanted to show that he cares about her and whatnot. And he tries to broach the topic again of their communication, and you take a tone. How are you gonna tell somebody to take a tone while taking a tone yourself? Girl, what are we doing? So when we fast forward and when we see that in this session with Dr. Viviana, it becomes really clear, like, oh, she's the bullheaded one here, and I don't understand, how you're going to communicate if you can't even ask your significant other a question without them just blowing up or being irritated. Things seem to lighten up when Jasmina and Michael do like the little like intimacy activities that the couples have been doing throughout this episode, and Jasmina finally like acknowledges that she's been kind of difficult, and that she will make an effort to be less defensive, and I thought that was really nice. And also, they wind up having a session together where they go to a yoga studio, and the yoga studio, they're doing different activities that kind of encourage them to physically touch one another, because it was established in their session with Viviana that they do find one another attractive, but Jasmina basically says, it doesn't matter if I find you visually attractive. If I'm not emotionally attracted to you, then she said my vagina not getting wet for you. And I get it, girl. I understand, okay? And so in order for them to build emotional intimacy, it will take her bringing those walls down a little bit and being willing to actually have conversations without being defensive. But also in their session with Dr. Viviana, since they were able to establish that, and I think establishing that they both do find one another attractive is, I think, an affirmation that Michael probably needed, because I think I remember throughout the episode that the season, maybe there was a time when Jasmina might have made a comment about his physique, but that's not the same as really being like, oh, I'm attracted to you. Like, I feel like it was nice for Michael to get that affirmation. Like, I felt good for Michael when when Jasmina seemed to indicate that she was attracted to him. I'm like, oh, good, he's getting some like positive, reinforcement from her. And so again, fast forward when they go to their little yoga session, I thought it was really cute and sweet, because they had to like get close and touch one another and be in close physical contact, and I really think that that whole scene did wonders for them, and I'm more optimistic for them. Thanks for listening to me whine, and until next time.